Marvel films rated from worst to best by Ecran Large. Avengers: Infinity War of the Russo brothers arrives on April 25, and with it, the presumed heyday of 18 films and amount of superheroes in universe, gathered in a big fight against Thanos. The opportunity to review all the productions of the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, from Iron Man to Thor, Ragnarok through the Guardians of the Galaxy and Captain America, Civil War, with a ranking of all the films, starting from the worst to the best. A classification obviously specific to the drafting, established thanks to the votes of each one, and which in no case should be taken otherwise than our collective opinion, of ours, which will certainly not be able to agree to each spectator. Please do not go into a spin, take out insults and rifles. 6. The Guardians of the Galaxy. What's going on? Chris Pratt child really does not have a bowl. Not only does his mother die of cancer, but he is kidnapped by aliens. Once grown up, he's still not too bad, and even finds himself doing boyfriend with a gang of space thugs to recover a stone of purple infinity, which was to return to the villain and not less Thanos Purple, but who finally fell into the hands of Ronan, not less mean but not purple. What's happening? The Guardians of the Galaxy is surprisingly good at portraying a bunch of battered pariahs hiding big cracks behind falsely mocking humor and utterly tongue-in-cheek, while forging credible connections between them. James Gunn has explained, his Guardians are just a meeting of characters recovering hard from difficult personal experiences, at the top of which the editors will place Drax, whose wife and children were genocided by Thanos, and Rocket, alone and unique representative of his kind and therefore condemned to never know any such, let alone love. The Infinity Stone is also very well managed. This is the gem of power, a concentrate of raw power, and his first appearance clearly sets the tone, we do not mess with. And then, the climax is a model of narrative efficiency. What's wrong? Benicio del Toro's space brushing, Gamora's rescue frankly cheesy, a villain agreed despite a very classy design, Yondu and his arrow completely broken, an artistic direction half fig half grape, and Dave Bautista who plays a bit like a squirrel. 5. Iron Man. What's this talking about? Tony Stark is a playboy arms salesman. A kidnapping by terrorists will make him aware that he can do good while remaining a playboy implayable, with a big battery instead of the heart. With the help of his assistant and a bit of S.H.I.E.L.D., he will face his evil colleague Stan. Too proud of him to shut up, Stark announces in press conference that he is Iron Man. Nick Fury arrives in his living room to calm him. He is not the only superhero in the area, and announces that it is part of a larger universe, called MCU. What works? Here is a film that had everything to turn into a total disaster, and that has finally transformed the face of mainstream entertainment as we know it. Marvel is in a bad position and hopes that the production of films in-house will allow the company to rebound and offer its catalog a new notoriety. Jon Favreau may be an honest maker, it is not the style that suffocates him. Robert Downey Jr. is gradually emerging from a ruthless desert crossing, and the writer's strike forced the crew to start filming with little solid filming. It's the recipe for the industrial incident, but everything is miraculously articulated to perfection, or almost. Robert Downey Jr., no doubt aware that he will have no other opportunity to resurrect dusts a hero who was no longer in the odor of sanctity to make a monument of cool, without betraying him, he entertains thanks to the demons and traits he shares with Tony Stark. The result has incredible charm, the chemistry between Gwyneth Paltrow and Downey Jr. is delicious, and the special effects are overall impeccable. And if you notice a big soft belly in a last act much too relaxed, Iron Man manages to unravel the figure of the superhero and gives the general public the impression of seeing live comics come to life. Why it does not work? Because shaving the skull of Jeff Bridges is not enough to make a bad guy worthy of the name. The actor will also know that the regime based on improvisation imposed by conditions of incredible production was only half as good. However, he will become the standard meter of the bland and unpopular villains of the recipe Marvel, whose inanity appears in broad daylight when it is precipitated on the front of the stage in a third incredibly messy act. 4. Ant-Man. What's going on? Because he does not trust S.H.I.E.L.D. Drive. Hank Pym decides to keep his secret formula for him, able to miniaturize living things and objects. Years later, burglar Scott Lang unknowingly steals a suit with this technology. He is then enlisted by Hank and his daughter Hope, who want him to help stop Cross, who leads Pym-Tech with dark ambitions. Scott alias Ant-Man confronts the Avenger Falcon for the purposes of his mission, then Cross alias Yellow Jacket up to the risk of flirting with the subatomic dimension, where Janet Van Dyne aka Wasp was lost years more early. He wins. End. What's Going On, minor film in the eyes of many, marked by the departure of a much-appreciated Edgar Wright, with a smaller box office compared to others. Ant-Man has a dirty image. Yet it is one of the most discreetly clever and honest films of the MCU, fun, uninhibited and assumes its lightness. Hitherto second place in Hollywood, Paul Rudd finally wins a place of the First Order, where his fun and charm have all the space to develop. And especially Peyton Reed assembles a handful of excellent moments, such as this clash in a suitcase on Disintegration from The Cure, or this absurd fight by the pool. And especially this climax, much smarter than expected, which, with this gap between the battle on the miniature train and this wide shot on the table, reminds that Marvel is only a story of toys that we deliberately chose to take a little seriously, and has its place in a child's room because it is about dreams of kid. What's wrong? The modest side and marginal stars of the MCU, which makes it a little memorable film for many people, especially compared to the most spectacular adventures and visually cumbersome. He who does not appreciate Marvel humor moderately was not thrilled by the number of Paul Rudd and his acolytes. And of course, the Joker of Edgar Wright's version that could have been a super movie, it's sure no, does not help. 3. Captain America, the First Avenger. What's the cause? Steve Rogers is a shrimp, but a shrimp that wants to make war to stop the Nazis. The US government makes him a super muscular super soldier. The mascot of the American propaganda goes in search of his best friend Buck Barnes, supposed to be dead, and discovers the bad Red Skull, a very naughty Nazi of Hydra. With his mates and a super-looped vibranium, Captain America chases the bad guys, and Barnes is still left for dead. The hero ends up crashing voluntarily in the Arctic to save innocent people. But he wakes up 70 years later, ready to join the Avengers. Why it works? Cape Town's first adventure is probably one of Disney's most unloved productions. Surprising disenchantment, as the film reveals richness and deep sense of entertainment. Is directed by Joe Johnston, an old Hollywood hunk, played backstage at Star Wars, piloting The Rocketeer, Jumanji, Jurassic Park: The Third Adventures before saving Wolfman from a nightmare production. Perfectly comfortable in a retro-futuristic entertainment with the heady perfume of Indiana Jones, Johnston uses all the stuff he learned at Spielberg. Has a great importance given to his characters, which he always motivates actions. As a result, Steve Rogers becomes a writing model, within a Marvel team that is swollen with lukewarm and interchangeable psychologies. He is also the first character whose powers depend not so much superhuman abilities, but their combination with the personality that benefits. See The Great Pursuit in the Bronx, just after the advent of Cape Town. As for the action, it contains a bewildering amount of iconic images, finds, and ends with a mutant climax, which goes from a ground fight to the taking of a base, to a surreal dogfight in the air, before spoiling on the occasion of one of the most touching epilogues seen at Marvel. At the review, difficult to do the difficult before such a fun and neat production. Why it does not work? Because no one wanted a movie set during the Second World War at the time, and that people have the annoying habit of going to the cinema with poop in their eyes. More seriously, if the film takes a step aside by questioning just the candid dimension, pro-American, even propagandist character, it is still perceived by some of the public as a good student lacking charisma. Finally, if the film does not lack a spectacular sequence, and passes the overdrive altogether in its second part, it takes its time to gradually build the characterization and personality of his hero, and a classic, very old school, pulls apart of the electric fun of an Iron Man, then the standard meter of the Marvel house. To the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. What happens after stranding the Sovereigns and their priestess Aisha, but recovering Nebula? Star-Lord discovers that his father is Ego, a god who has the face of Kurt Russell. While Groot, Rocket and Nebula confront Yondu and his gang, sent by Aisha, kill Drax and Gamora visit the planet of Ego, which is actually Ego itself. He asks his son to help him spread in the universe. Mantis, his alien assistant, knows that all this hides the truth. Ego is a bad god, who has killed many of his children, and implanted the tumor in the brain of Quill's mother. The assembled Guardians lay a bomb on Ego's corpse brain, and Yondu, Quill's true good father, sacrifices himself to save him. Nebula announces that she will go kill her father Thanos, and Aisha, she presents Atom, his weapon to destroy the Guardians. What goes? One would be tempted to say everything, so much the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is a success in many ways. Film centered on his characters and their evolution, without forgetting a good dose of action. It allows James Gunn to free himself from the laws of the MCU by offering us a damn moving story about the transmission, the report to the father, the transition to adulthood. While kindly making fun of gender codes and expectations of his audience, he manages to become a beautiful and pure movie object, probably the first of the entire MCU. What's wrong? You still have to be honest, the Guardians 2 still have some problems. A rhythm poorly managed at times that causes a soft belly in the middle of intrigue, a set of issues quite laborious in the first act, a family-friendly morality typical of Disney a little too tartane in places, and a humor that can to appear in some is a little windy. Not to mention some important characters relegated to the backdrop. But hey, it's still pretty awesome, huh? When Avengers What happens? Loki steals the Tesseract from S.H.I.E.L.D. and turns Hawkeye and Selvig into zombies extras. Fury then launches the Avengers Initiative. It brings together Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, Bruce Banner, and Thor, who is encrusted. They capture Loki. The little band is fighting for everything and nothing, but the death of Coulson, except that no, he will return in his series, brings them together for real. The Avengers face so many horrible things in New York, because the Union is their strength. Thor embarks the Tesseract, which is actually the Space Stone, at home. And Thanos, in the post-generic scene, makes his first big grand villain appearance that pulls the strings. What's up? Buffy's creator against vampires has an obvious talent for creating group dynamics, writing characters together in an improbable band, and handling humor and self-mockery. The Avengers are as obvious to the screenwriter behind Firefly, who manages with real ease to present the band, stage their conflicts, and find this epic breath when the superheroes face together the chaos. It's a beautiful balancing act, where everyone, or almost, will have their moment of glory, their place, their identity, in a great balanced and harmonious adventure. That the film is a first major stage of the MCU, obviously.